Thanks for visiting Patient Weather today. I'm meteorologist Al Peterlin. I'd like to talk about the weather stress forecast for Friday the 13th, March 13th, 2026. We do keep additional graphics at tpatw.com. We also maintain a storefront, Patient Weather, on Amazon. Amazon purchases made through our Patient Weather storefront support the activities of Patient Weather. Looking at the surface map for Friday, you can see that there is a low pressure center still trying to develop up in portions of Montana, Wyoming, and the atmospheric river will be flowing strongly into the Pacific Northwest with unsettled weather, rain along the coast, but snow throughout Montana and all the way into the northern plains, especially across through South Dakota. Note that there is still that low pressure center hanging about upstate New York, cool front hanging all the way back through Pittsburgh, back into Oklahoma City, a warm front trying to push its way into New England. But note there is still a lot of snow up here in portions of northern New England, a little bit of rain hanging back here in the southern portion of the Northeast. The tail end of a cool front still hangs across southern or central Florida, keeping unsettled weather there. Looking at our vitality index, and that's just a composite picture of where all of the individual weather elements might have some difficulty for people that are sensitive, and there's always that little bit of activity here in the Pacific Northwest, but most significantly we have a lot of activity going on here in Texas across the south. We have a lot going on here in the northern plains toward the Great Lakes, but really along the easternmost portions of the Great Lakes into the middle Atlantic states, a lot of activity. You'll also note there's a lot of activity going on here in the easternmost provinces of Canada, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. Looking at pressure change, and lots of pressure change going on both for Friday and then again coming back in on Saturday, but we have falling pressure here along California up through Washington, Oregon, and into Nevada. Really deeply falling pressure here hanging on in Florida and shooting off to the northeast across Louisiana, Arkansas, into Kentucky, and then turning into another significant area of falling pressure in the middle Atlantic states and the eastern portions of the Great Lakes, extending all the way into southern New England. But we have rising pressure up the northern plains from Nebraska up through the Dakotas, strong across Iowa, Minnesota, and making its way into Wisconsin. And then again, rising pressure here in the easternmost portions of Maine and those Canadian provinces. Looking at temperature change, kind of interesting again. We'll have real heat starting to build here in the west, but very significant rise already going on in Texas, across the Gulf states, and on into the really middle Atlantic states, or the southernmost portion of the Atlantic states. Cold air falling back into the northern plains, and again we're getting ready to do a lot more flip-flopping. Looking at the dew point temperature change and the increase in vapor pressure, you'll see that we're turning a lot of the humidity back across the south from Texas all the way to the Carolinas, trying to put a little bit here into the middle Atlantic states. And we do have that drying with the frigid air coming back into the northern plains. Looking at the change in oxygen availability, you'll see that we do have that risk of migraine stress here across most of Montana, up and down the plains, really from northeastern Kansas across Nebraska, up and down the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, and into Wisconsin. And then again, we're back into those Canadian provinces with that migraine risk. And note that there is a bit of a migraine risk here in Florida. Looking at the risk of asthma and arthritis, a rather significant risk of asthma and arthritis right here along the Washington-Oregon border, but then jumping back down to Texas, Oklahoma, across the south all the way to Georgia, and then up the eastern seaboard, taking in almost all of the east, all the way from easternmost portions of Wisconsin, becoming really significant in upstate New York, cutting across Tennessee, Kentucky, and down into the Carolinas, and sort of hanging on right through upstate New York and trying to touch into southern New England, but really holding off at western Massachusetts and to Vermont. Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather. Your comments are appreciated, and if you hurt, tell us where you're located.